All right, so this is my quick one stock. You have two, but this is my one stock sample, quick screencast journal, just to give you an idea of some things to think about. So, my name is James Capty. This is my journal post for Journal 7. I started looking at Sirius XM Radio. It's a good affordable stock. It's trading today at $2.21 a share. It is market cap is at about 8 billion, so it's a mid cap stock. So it's kind of in the midline there. Its 52-week range is $1.27 to 2.44. So really, it's towards the higher end, but it obviously being a cheap stock has a huge opportunity for growth if we look at that. So it does not offer a dividend, and so I'm looking at this as an investment. So we have to consider some other things here because there's no dividend. So I've got to hopefully prove to you that this stock, I believe, has some potential to go up. So when I look at this stock compared to, let's look at a quick comparison to, let me get rid of that screen. Let's look at a quick comparison to some of its competitors. So now that I have brought all three of two of its major competitors, its other major competitor is actually privately held. So let's look at these. So if we look at Sirius compared to Dial Global, they're about the same price. And when we look at Cumulus Media, which used to be just to actually absorb these different companies, but this is about a $357 stock. So Cumulus is a little bit higher price than the rest of them, but they're all very affordable. When we look at cap size, Sirius is a mid cap. Dial is a small cap, so maybe it has potential to grow. So we'll have to look at that. And then as well as Cumulus is also a small cap. So out of these, Sirius is by far the largest player of the mix. When we look at the dividend, Sirius doesn't offer a dividend, nor does Dial, nor does Cumulus. So when we're looking at this one, I have to build my case, and hopefully that this stock is going to go up, and there's got to be some great reasoning for that as well. So when we look at this, here's the stock for SiriusXM. It's at its peak. It was trading reasonably high. It approached if we look at that, the peak was about $50 a share. If we look at that, the peak, if we look over here in at Dial Global, was their peak was that's actually shares, so it's a little different. It's hard to figure this one out because it was just absorbed, but it definitely shows you that there was it definitely went up and came back down, which all three graphs have a similar appearance if we look at it. So we look at Cumulus, it was up, and then it came down during the recession, and then it's gradually working its way back up. And if we look at its top, it was at about $22. So obviously all three of these have room to grow if they can get back to where they actually were. So far this has been pretty much a draw if we're looking at these three stocks in my mind. So I jumped to MSN Money and looked at their stock scouter score on this, and on Sirius they gave it a 6. And the reasoning for it started to make me think. Their relative price change, the good is they've been relatively stable, but their con is their price to earnings is really high. And so that makes me nervous because the price to earnings means that how much their share price, how much they're earning is over the rest of the industry if you look at that. So shares are heavily being sold by financial institutions means a little something to me as well, just because if we start to think about if banks and people who are investing for a living are getting rid of it, makes me a little bit nervous. It gets a grade C on fundamentals, and so earning growth information is unavailable or inconsistent. Well, that makes me a little bit nervous. Ownership, high-level executives sold a large number of shares, so the people within the company are sharing, and so overall they're giving it a grade C. This is making me think. So if we look at Dial Global over here, it doesn't have a stock scouter score. It's a new company and it does not have that. so that you know, it's obviously got some potential. It's got 5,000 radio stations, but is it worth my money? I don't know. So let's jump over here and look at um, Cumulus Media Incorporated. And Cumulus Media Incorporated, well, it has a 7. Okay, and it has a pretty solid score here. Pro earnings growth potential. The ratio of price to earnings multiple to its 5-year growth rate is slightly below average of all stocks, so it has definite room to grow. And I think that is worth noting. When we look at some of the fundamentals are a D. The most recent quarterly earnings report was significantly lower than the consensus. So overall, their fundamental growth, once again, was a D. Ownership is a C. Insider trading information is unavailable and inconsistent. Valuation, an A. So after starting this process and looking at a stock to buy, I wasn't sure which one. I thought Sirius was the one because I thought, well, you know, I knew it better. But by the time I was done looking at this, overall, I believe that Cumulus Media is the way to go. So I actually purchased 100 shares and I bought them at $357. And because this market is huge and growing, and their peak was 18, I see them in the next year growing to about 7. And looking at their graph, seeing where they could rebound to, I believe that 7, as we look at how high they could get, is only a $3, $3.50 increase. So when we look at that graph in particular, I think we see an upswing here. This is the peak of the recession. I think as we come out of this, more and more there's more and more opportunity for that type of media, as far as wire, radio, and those kind of things. So I predict it's going to go up to 7. So that gives me a 350 to 350 price to increase prediction. And I hope you like my stock.